Hello and welcome to this special interactive manufacturing management live panel. As always, I'm Chris Beck, the editor of Manufacturing Management. Now, in these uncertain times, squeezing every drop of productivity out of your plant is vital, whether that's your equipment, your processes, or your people. With budgets for many either shrinking or being frozen altogether, manufacturers have to make do with what they've got and rely on the often dark art of continuous improvement to wring out the most performance. Now, many organisations and many of you watching this will have seen CI programs fall by the wayside or have expect immediate results that just aren't coming, and it gets quietly dropped by the board or senior management. But luckily, I've been joined today by one of the UK's leading experts in business improvement, Andy Watt, Managing Director of CI firm Goldratt UK. Andy, welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Now, you've got a couple of practical exercises that we'll be doing later on. I'll be taking part as well. But I thought maybe we could start with a quick chat around continuous improvement. As I mentioned, making the most of what you've got is going to be crucial as we enter some pretty tough economic times. So is CI now more important than it ever is?
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, there's never a shortage of what you can improve. I go around many factories and you can see, gosh, you could improve everywhere. The real trick though is about identifying where's the few key areas to improve that's going to really make a difference to the bottom line. And for certain, people are under pressure to reduce resources, yet still hit, sales targets and value targets. So more than ever, we've got to find capacity, we've got to find extra flow. So how to do that is the key challenge.
Absolutely, yeah. And why do some companies struggle to maintain their CI program? I mentioned earlier that
no, I think part of it is about how long it takes. It's not fast enough. People tend to embark on let's solve everything rather than get some focus. And some of the things I'm actually going to present later and we're going to discuss is going to say how can I do these things rapidly? How can I do them fast? Well, why does it have to take me 6 months or a year? Why can't I do it in a week? Do it in 2 weeks? This is something we certainly challenged ourselves over and thought, how can we do this rapidly?
And growing pressures from board level with budgets and everything. I guess that pressure is only going to grow. That need for a kind of instant response, which isn't necessarily going to come.
No, but I think if you prepare properly, you can get very fast results. There's no reason why an improvement activity shouldn't yield results in a matter of weeks, and in a very short period of time. So if you can do something to do that, the other reason I think that improvement programs tend to struggle is because they tend to be a disruptor. So you get caught in this dilemma of, do I focus on an improvement which gives me jam tomorrow, or do I focus on actually the problem I've got here today, which is I've got to get the goods out, or I've got to finish this project and I just don't have time to do both. So what you have to do is make sure that the improvement program isn't causing the massive disruption, but is actually helping us to deliver today and building for tomorrow at the same time.
Sure, and hopefully the exercise that we're about to do is going to focus the minds of everybody watching. But how do they then take that focus and that passion and everything that they've learned and make sure it sticks with the rest of the team, and that they can translate exactly how important the things that we're about to do are?
Yeah. So most improvements, I think, are basically we're asking people to change their behaviours. If you're asking someone to change their behaviour, they want to check first of all that it's going to be good for them. So part of if you're looking at a behavioural change, you want to put things in place that are very fast measures to show that actually these things are making a difference. And you need to also have some feedback mechanism, which we're not very good at often in terms of the positive feedback mechanism, to say actually you're doing a fantastic job, you're doing exactly what I asked you to do. So if you can get that with the behavioural change you need, if you can get that positive reinforcement of the behaviour that UK people typically aren't very good at, then I think that brings that really helps to embed it and helps to get it really fast.
Sure. And just before we start the exercise, obviously you and I both at the moment are working from home. We're gradually going back to the office and a sort of new way of working. Those in manufacturing, they're in the factory, but social distancing's in place. Things aren't as they were 6 months ago or at the start of the year. How does that change how continuous improvement works? We're doing a digital
Yep.
discussion now, where in the past we would have done it face to face, and you could have gone in and shown people exactly how to do things in a factory setting or in a
Yep.
work setting. How has the whole world of CI changed over the last few months?
I think from our perspective, it certainly seems to have changed for the better. We seem to be actually taking some of our own medicine. So normally, we go in and we tell everybody, look, it's about how far, it's about flow, it's about chunking work into smaller chunks and getting the smaller chunks to move faster through the system. And we would still go into companies for a whole day and do a big chunk of work, and then we'd leave it for a week and then go in another whole day. Now, what we're doing in the digital age is we're able to touch people. And coming back to my disruption, that's obviously a big disruption for people. That's a day of disruption that we're bringing. If we can then do it in, what we've been doing it in smaller bite-sized chunks, but more frequently, so every day it's an hour or 2 hours, it's much less of a disruption. We're getting much faster flow through that, and frankly, most of it's nothing but positive effects.
Great, great. Well, I'm really looking forward to what we've got in store. Shall we move on to the exercise? For
Yep.
those watching, I think I'm right in saying, Andy, they'll need a pen and paper, but
Yep.
nothing else.
No.
Obviously, work along with us. I'll be doing this. I'll be doing it as well. And obviously, if you're watching, you can pause the video, go back and rewatch bits. The video will be obviously available on demand, so by all means, send it to everyone I guess. Andy, over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So I'm just going to share my screen. So everybody can now see that.
Great.
So just a little bit of an introduction about who we are, because Goldratt doesn't necessarily resonate with everybody. But most people in manufacturing and in engineering have heard of the book The Goal. It's been published a long, long time ago now, back in 1984. But it essentially talks about how, and it is relevant today as it was all those years ago. But it tells you about how basically the managing director, plant manager turns around the company from almost closure in 3 months to turning it into a success story. And I think lots of people face are we still going to be here in 3 months' time at the moment? So it's if you can take some of the concepts away from that and implement them in your factory, it will make a massive, massive difference. We were established way back in '89 by Eli Goldratt himself, and that's him in the top left-hand corner. And nothing is complicated. So if you're looking for a complex answer to a problem, then we don't have the complex answer. What we're looking for is a simple, common sense answer. But it's typically a breakthrough because we're asking for a big change in behavior. So the analogy I often give is one of the high. If you take high jump as a good example, so if you put yourself in, everybody knows the Fosbury flop is the current way of that athletes use to jump the highest over the high jump. But if you put yourself in Dick Fosbury, who was the inventor of that shoes and his coach shoes, pre 1968 when he won the Olympic gold medal and leapt much further than everybody else, then you can imagine the conversation when Dick Fosbury saying, I've got an idea for how I'm going to win the Olympic gold medal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run up to the high jump as fast as I can. And when I get to the high jump, I'm going to turn around and jump over it backwards. Now, I'm not sure his coach thought at that point in time, wow, you're onto a winner there, Dick. But it's it's proved the test of time. It made a massive difference. It won him the Olympic gold medal. So, but that's doing something fundamentally different. And that's, although most of these things are common sense, they are fundamentally different to the way in which we operate today. Okay, so maybe if I'm presenting something here, then you're going through a bit of a Dick Fosbury moment where you're thinking, oh, hang on a minute, is that really going to work? Okay. In terms of results, and really I'm trying to link to our discussion earlier, Chris, as well, and saying, you know, one of the things that stop improvement activities is that they take too long, and they don't get you real bottom line results. You know, we save. I've seen so many Lean Six Sigma programs where they say we've saved this amount of millions of pounds, and you go, where is that millions of pounds on the bottom line? Then it doesn't appear anywhere. It's a mirage. So you need to deliver something that really does count on the bottom line, especially now. You know, it's got to do something for cash. It's got to do something for sales. So what do we bring to the party is we're experts at flow and capacity. That's our niche within the CI improvement. So if you want to find extra capacity, and I'm not talking 2%, 3%, 4%, I'm talking 50%. If you want to do things faster, crash your lead times by 75%, then you need to do something fundamentally different. And that's what we bring to the party. If you can do something about flow and capacity, then it does two things. One is it means effectively you deliver more with proportionally less. So that's more money coming in to the business. It should be more cash coming in. If you can do it faster than everybody else, it gives you a competitive advantage you can leverage in the sales. And you can apply exactly the same concepts to sales after that. So squeeze more capacity out of sales, get more sales with the sales staff you've got. Again, that makes nothing but an impact on bottom line and on cash, the two most important metrics. In terms of the clients we've worked with, we don't specialize in one particular industry. It's industry wide. There's a few there that aren't manufacturing, but 80% of our businesses are manufacturing who we work with. You recognize some of the names, and equally you won't recognize others. So what I really want to talk about today is about flow. So before I talk about anything to do with a solution, first of all, I need to talk about, well, what's the problem that we're suffering from today? Why do I claim that there's even a problem with flow? The first interesting thing is when you look at touch time. So even for you, Chris, there are tasks that you do, yeah. So I'm sure you've got a long list of tasks that are that you've got to get through. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely.
And when you think how long that's going to take me, and you compare how long that's going to take you, which I guess in some cases is hours, some cases it may be big tasks that are days, and I compare, there's a few hours there. If you compare when you start that task and when you finish it, I'm sure the elapsed time is much longer, a magnitude longer than the touch time. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Now that's exactly the same if you're talking about managers, if you're talking about engineers, or if you're talking about work in the factory. Often we look at work in the factory and we add up the minutes and we go, so I was at a company yesterday and we're talking their lead time from start to finish is 10 weeks and their touch time is 6.5 days. So it's a magnitude difference, is massive. So it starts work 10 weeks before it's required, yet the touch time on that is only 6.5 days. If you talk about projects and you add up all the tasks in a project, some projects are short, maybe 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, then you compare the actual touch time. If I think of the time it's going to take me to do that task compared to the whole length of the project, again, it's a magnitude different. And I'm assuming there's a lot of people in the room who are managers, and they unfortunately have the biggest task list. And again, they're stuck with, well, which one of these many things I could do I do? And they're typically overloaded with lots and lots of tasks. And again, we start a task, we put it down. So, question is, what's the problem with flow, really? Are there any fundamental concepts that we can use or we should adopt that can help us to get touch time much closer to the elapsed time? So first concept I want to look at, there's more than one, but I'm really going to focus on the concept of how we release work currently. How does work get released? So typically for manufacturers, how does work get released? So typically is I need it now. Just had a very important phone call from a customer who's screamed at me on the phone and says, look, you know, I can give you this, if you can do this piece of work for me in the next 4 weeks, then, you know, I'll even pay you a premium for doing it. So there's a bit of pressure on whoever it is to say, yes, we can do it. Now, have they got any idea of all the complexities and all the implications of saying yes, no? But in isolation, can that job be done in 4 weeks? Yeah, in isolation, sure it can. So if it can be, then how do I launch that? How do I actually release that work? Well, I think, well, 4 weeks is a pretty short time. So I better get started on it. So typically it gets started, yeah? We're in this start mentality. So that's one way work gets released, is I need it. And the earlier I start, the earlier we finish. So crack on. Seems to make sense. The other thing that happens is somebody puts their hand up and says, I don't have anything to do. Or we walk around the shop floor and we go, oh, he's going to run out of work soon. So let's launch some work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that brings a fundamental, maybe a different concept for another day, but fundamentally, if we're saying, well, one person typically at the beginning of the line always seems to demand more work, but I don't get any more work out of the back end, then we have a problem somewhere else in the flow. So releasing that isn't actually going to help us get the work out. Releasing it sooner doesn't get the work out faster.
Sure. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So there's a few questions. So this is now I'm going to ask you some questions. If you look at your task list, Chris,
Yeah.
you look at the things on that list. How many of those are maybe you're not sure what done looks like or what good looks like for that finished task? Sometimes we look down our list and we go, so how many have you got things on there that you think, yeah, I'm not that sure what
I'd
it
say,
looks
yeah,
like.
a good proportion of my, yeah.
Okay. So one
Yeah.
good tip is always to make sure, well, I'm not going to release anything that I'm not sure what done looks like or what good looks like. So I have to make absolutely sure. Obviously, this is more in the project or the managerial task list, not so much in a production environment, because in a production environment, we know that good looks like a good product and to draw into specification. But certainly if we're talking about managers, then I'd like, just look down your list and think, is there anything on that list that I'm not exactly sure what good looks like? So one good tip is try and define it as a done statement. Okay. If you look down your list again, Chris, are there some things that you're missing in order to finish it, not to start it, but are there some bits that you're missing to be able to complete that task?
Yep.
Okay. So again, we're focused on starting the work. So again, we go, yeah, don't worry about that. How many times have you been involved in, the guys that are involved in production? How many times have you been told to start a task saying that, don't worry, this will arrive just in time for you to complete it, whether it's a part you need for assembly or whether it's a part of a bigger project? Probably many, many times, yeah? And how many times has that ever turned up and been a reality? Almost never. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we're saying, oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry that you haven't got everything. Don't worry you can't finish the task. Just start it. We've just got to start it. Do you ever get interrupted? Do you ever have any priority changes on that list, Chris? Do you ever start a task and somebody says, actually, this is now more important?
Yeah. There's distractions and other jobs coming in that suddenly seem more important. Yeah.
So you put it down. What happens when you put it down, when you pick that job up again?
I've lost focus. I've lost where I was. I can't pick it straight back up again. It takes takes a while to kind of remember where I was and everything else. Yeah.
Okay, so there's an impact on a setup, even if it's just a mental impact on a setup. There's a loss of capacity that we lose, and the fact that we've stopped it means we've lost flow. So we've started it, we've put it down, we've stopped it. We basically put it in a hold pattern. We put it in a queue, which accumulates. So it disrupts flow and it wastes capacity.
Yeah.
What happens is we get caught in a bit of work suffers significant flow delays. There's significant delays to flow. What we tend to do then is we say, well, let's start work even earlier. So I've been to some companies where they've said, we've done a whole analysis of our production through this was a maintenance company. When we're maintaining all the different, they were an aircraft maintenance, so they were stripping it, repairing it, putting it back together. And they said, we've realized that actually our times aren't, let's say 6 weeks, they're 8 weeks. So what we did was we changed everything to the lead time to 8 weeks. Did that solve the problem? What do you think, Chris?
I'd be very surprised if it did.
So instead of it being finished in 8 weeks, because we're throwing more things into the system, actually it gets finished in 10 weeks. So we still have a 2-week delay. So counterintuitively, we have to do something maybe slightly different, going back to my high job analogy.
Sure.
But there's always pressure to start work earlier. So if there's pressure to start work earlier, then what happens is we get more and more queues and we get more and more interruptions. We get more choices, so we get more things available for people to come along and say, don't do that job, do that job. Many years ago, I run a production shop floor, and I used to think I did a fantastic job at going around to all the different operators, effectively changing their priorities on them, stopping them, interrupting them, and I still went home thinking, gosh, if it wasn't for me, those guys would be really lost. But I was the interrupter king. But I constantly had lots of things that I could choose to interrupt, because the thing that I interrupted yesterday, I needed to then prioritize today, and it was a constant firefighting battle. So what it does is it basically means that we're missynchronized. It increases the missynchronization. It forces us to expedite, forces us to constantly change priorities, which all adds up to work suffering significant flow delays. And this is the vicious cycle we find ourselves in, whether it's as a manager, whether it's on the production shop floor, or whether it's in a project environment.
Sure.
So what we're going to do is a little experiment. So this is why you need your pen and paper at hand. So we're going to do an experiment on, is there a different way that we can release work that's going to give us more flow and more capacity? So it's a very simple exercise. So we call it the letters, numbers, and shapes exercise. So don't write anything down until I fully explain what I would like you to do. Okay, it's very important that you don't do that. So we're going to do 2 runs at this. The first run we're going to do is, I'm going to force you to do something as if I gave you this work to do. You wouldn't intuitively do it that way, but I'm trying to simulate the environment we find ourselves in. So if you can imagine, instead of a letter, a number, or a shape, if this is a project piece of work that you're doing, or this is a product that we've launched onto the shop floor that goes through a number of operations. So each one goes through 10 operations. So if it goes through a lathe, a mill, a drill, then I want to simulate the starting and stopping of that. Okay. So I wanted to do something very simple. So on your piece of paper, just write down an L, an N, and an S. Okay. And draw 3 columns. So that's the setup done. From now on, I don't want you to write anything else, and I'm just going to explain what I want you to do. So what I want you to do is, I want you to write a combination of letters, I want you to write a combination of numbers, and a combination of shapes. So the letters that I want you to write is basically the alphabet, which starts at letter A, and because I said that we're going to run 10, it finishes at J. Okay, so it's going to write 10 letters, and we're going to follow that sequence: A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
Then we're going to write 10 numbers, and again, it's a sequence you're familiar with, so I'm going to ask you to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I'm going to ask you to basically draw a number of different shapes and a sequence of shapes. So I'm starting with a circle, then a triangle, and then a square, and I'm going to ask you to repeat that sequence. Okay. So the sequence is circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle, square. Okay, now I'm going to force a rule on you, though. I'm going to force you to follow a rule. So you must follow this rule. I run this in a classroom environment in the past, and I still have to go around and notice that people have decided to not follow my rule and decided to write down the letters A, B, C, D. I want to force you to basically interrupt. I'm going to force an interruption pattern on you. So I want you to write the letter A. Don't write it yet still. I want you to look to write the letter A. I want you to write the number 1. I want you to draw a circle. Then I want you to go back to the letter and write a B, then a 2, then a triangle.
Yeah.
Then a C, then a 3, then a square. Okay, you must do that interrupt. I know if I gave you this exercise to do and I said do it as fast as you can, you would not do it this way. But I want to simulate the environment that we find ourselves in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the way down, and there, just in case you forget what letter comes next, there it is in front of you on the screen. So I'll time you because it's important. So everybody that doesn't is doing this and watching it on a video, please now get yourself your phone or something, a little stopwatch, and press the start button. So I'm going to ask you to do this now, Chris. So you're going to write down A1 circle, and I'm going to trust you that you tell me and signal when you've finished. Okay?
Yeah, will do.
So are you ready to go? Yep.
I am.
Okay, off you go.
Done.
Okay, 31 seconds. Well done. That's definitely at the higher end that I normally see this.
Good. Glad to hear it.
So congratulations. So before we move on to the second run, I'd just like to ask you a couple of questions on that one. So
Yeah.
any mistakes?
You hope not. I forgot what letter came after F. That took me a while.
It's very interesting the sequence that the shapes is a big interrupter in it, and it forces you, because it's a pattern interrupt. You forget even simple things like letters and their numbers. So you have to retune your brain back into the setup. So
going from shape to letter was hard. Letters and number wasn't too bad, but shape, remembering the sequence of shapes as well, that was tricky.
But compare the letters that you know and the sequence that you know very, very well compared to a task that you actually do.
Yeah.
It's completely different. So you can imagine that even though I'm going to demonstrate some significant results, I think, at changing the way we work, changing the way we release work, I would claim that actually reality is, in the reality of tasks and production work, it's even bigger. We'll gain even more. Okay, ready for the second run?
Ready? Yeah, I'll make
Okay, so if I said, right, do it as fast as you can, what would you do? How would you do it, Chris, if you had to do it fast?
Do all the letters, all the numbers, and then all the shapes, probably.
Okay, so we can make an improvement straight away. Yeah. So we're going to make an improvement, and this time we're going to say, look, instead of releasing all the work to me as you normally do, then just release me the letters first. When I finish the letters, then tell me I can go on the numbers, and when I finish the numbers, then tell me I can go on the shapes. So that's the new rule. Okay.
Yep.
So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So now, for those of you at home, we're going to ask you to time that again. So go.
Done the letters. Done the numbers. Done the shapes.
Okay, so that was 20 seconds, and thank you for doing that, because I should have asked you to record the time. So thanks for shouting out, because that was an important part as well, is that you completed the letters after 5 seconds, so that was the quickest. Numbers 6 seconds, and the whole thing in 20 seconds. Okay, so let's move on to debriefing that exercise. So a couple of things I want you to notice. So in run one, so if you can imagine time is the horizontal axis here. So in letters in run one, we started the letters immediately. Yep, time 0. Started straight away. We started the numbers 1 second in, and I started the shapes 2 seconds in. Then I forced you to constantly multitask. Now your time was actually 31 seconds, so you were a little bit quicker than this, but this, on average, people are around the 40-second mark. Okay. which means we finished the shapes in 40 seconds, which means I finished the numbers a second before that in 39 seconds, and I finished the letters in 38 seconds.
Sure.
Okay, so the lead time was 38 seconds. In your time, the lead time was 20. In your world, it was 28 seconds. Okay, so lead time or flow, 28 seconds. So remember what I asked at the beginning was elapsed time compared to actual touch time.
Yeah.
When you shouted out the number, when you did it, just the letters, you shouted it out after 5 seconds. So here we've got a lead time difference of, in your case, 28 seconds compared to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a fairly significant improvement. You agree?
Yeah, definitely. 6 times.
Okay, so that's because we've got work in progress of 3. So let's have a look at what happened on run 1, on run 2. So here we started letters exactly the same time, no difference. But this time we focused and we finished, and that's the thing I want you to take away. If anything you take away from this is focus and finish being the mantra, okay? I want to focus and I want to finish. And typically finish in about 6 seconds. So again, you're a little bit faster, but magnitude difference, yeah? So what does this mean if you're talking about cash coming in the door? What does it mean is if you're talking about, sales going out? So cash is coming in much, much quicker, significantly different, very important if we want to stay alive in these days. Possibly even a competitive advantage. If we can survive in a world of 28 seconds, and we can move to being able to deliver something in 6 seconds, 5 seconds, then maybe I can sell much, much more. Maybe it opens up a whole field to me. And maybe I can even charge a premium for that. I've only changed the release rule. It's the only thing I've changed. I haven't given you an extra pen. I've not given you different paper, done nothing but change the way we release work.
Mm-hmm.
So what did we do for numbers? What we told you to do was we're going to do it faster by stopping the release. This is definitely a run up to the high jump and jump over it backwards moment.
Yeah.
To say, I'm going to finish faster by not releasing that work. So you can do an experiment to prove that, but still in people's mind, it's like, really? So you're going to tell me to stop and I'm going to go faster? So we released the numbers after 7 seconds and I finished it in 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I've still finished. I've now got paid twice. I've now got paid for 2 projects, 2 products, 2 tasks. Okay. And I'm still less than half the time. So in your case, it was 11 seconds. You finished the whole thing in 31 seconds the first time. So a third of the time. Okay. And I've delivered 2 orders. The shapes one, we told you to wait even longer. So we said, do not start that until you've finished the numbers. So it's 14-second delay on release of work. So in your case, I was asking you to hold it back 12 days. Okay, it's 12 seconds. So hold it back 12 seconds. So if I'd said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold back the shapes for 12 seconds and then let it be released, and you're going to make more money and go even faster, then it's maybe a little bit less counterintuitive. But typically we finish it in 20 seconds. You finished it in 20 seconds, which was about the same, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of flow, massive impact.
Yeah.
What does this do in terms of capacity? Massive impact. Okay, in this example, you get basically I can double the amount I do. So I can actually do 6 pieces of work in the same period of time. In your case, it was 50%. So I can actually do 1.5 pieces in the same amount of time. Yeah, I can do another letter and another number, no problem. So I've gained extra capacity, which means effectively I can sell that extra capacity, or I've found a way of, if people have been forced into making people redundant, I've found a way to still keep the output the same, even with massive less, 50% of the workforce.
Yeah.
So work in progress has dropped. So work in progress is the thing that delays us, is the thing that queues. Switching tasks is the thing that causes us to be interrupted.
Yeah.
Any questions, Chris?
No, it's it's really interesting. It's certainly, even for me as someone who edits a magazine, you've got all these jobs bubbling away, and knowing which one to prioritize. or indeed the thing that I think I find, and I'm sure a lot of other people will find, is that you park a job, you park your letters because they're a bit boring, and you move on to the numbers, thinking I'll come back to the letters. How do you kind of maintain that focus of just doing the letters until the letters are done? I'm not moving on to the numbers.
Um, Basically, it's unreasonable to expect people to say, if you're talking about an engineer, to say, just do this task. It could be a long task of 2 days, 3 days, or more. It's unreasonable to say, shut yourself in a room, have no interruptions. Most of the time, it's unreasonable. Sometimes we do that when there's a real urgent thing on and we have to get it finished. Then people do take that extra action. But as a rule, it's probably impractical to do that. So what we would tend to do is say, give yourself some focused time. So give yourself 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. You can have it at a set time, but typically we'd try to have it as a flexible time to say, look, get the interruptions done in the morning, then get ready, give yourself the focused time to work on the letters. Then give yourself some time to deal with some interruptions, then give yourself some time to deal with the focus time of the letters again. But what's important is that we make sure that people respect that focus time and understand and see that we're in that focus time. So put a visual up. These days it's very easy, even remotely, to go, don't interrupt me. There's some good things about Teams, there's some bad things about Teams and working remotely in Zoom, is that I can contact people straight away and I can force an interrupt, and I don't want that forcing of interrupts. So how you do it is very important. So, but fundamentally, the concept of flow is about, one concept is how to release work, whether it be a task or whether it be work to the shop floor. When I go around lots and lots of different manufacturing companies, it's always the number one thing I'm looking at. What's your release rules?
Mm.
And typically they look at me as like I've come out from a different planet. What do you mean by release rule? Well, we just release work, or the computer tells us to release work, or the boss says, can you do this? So I just do it and I add it to my list. Well, that's not how to release tasks. So what's the concept or the rules that we can have? These aren't complicated, they're very simple. So the rules that we need is, make sure we know what finished looks like, make sure we know what done looks like. So unless you do that, if you're talking about a task, or as I said, in production, it's fairly easy. It's to drawing to specification. But if I don't know what good looks like if I'm doing a task on a project or editing a piece of work, then why on earth would I want to release that piece of work? How do I give that to an engineer? Can you just do that? And when you're unclear of what good looks like.
Yeah.
Secondly, if I don't have everything available to finish the job and I'm missing a full kit, is what we call it, then I would absolutely say it is not allowed, forbidden, to release work. And I would track that, how many times the work is released without a full kit, and make it a very clear metric. If you go and talk to many people on the shop floor or many engineers and say, what's the most frustrating thing? They'll say, well, we have to work on stuff we can't finish. I'm forced to start assembling this bit of kit even though I'm missing half the bits.
Mm.
That seems almost stupid. And the third rule is, only release work when the previous piece of work is completed. So I need a gating mechanism to say, right, I've finished that one, I can pull the next one in. Mm-hmm. Not put another one in. Don't feel like, well, I know you're in the middle of doing that task, but can you do this one instead? Well, can I just finish this piece of work first?
Yeah.
So what happens when you release work in this way is that, we have a new behavior. This is the focus and finish behavior. That's the mantra that we want. Instead of starting lots and lots of pieces of work and having lots of work in progress, I want to create a behavior called focus and finish. So I head down, I'm focusing on that piece of work, and I'm focused on it until I've finished that piece of work. I have no interruptions, no priority changes, nothing's missing. Do you think selling that to people on the shop floor, or selling that to people in the engineering office, or selling that even to management is difficult?
I'd imagine so. I think it'd be difficult for me to
Well, if I said, well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, I'm now going to release work that means that you don't get interrupted, that you don't have any changes to priority, and you don't have anything missing. Do you think that's difficult for me to sell it to you? To say, gosh, that sounds good.
I think
Wow.
selling it is one thing, but I don't know. Maybe for me, it's It's the
You're right.
interrupting yourself is the hard thing.
So selling it and actually
Doing it, yeah.
doing it is difficult. So the concept's easy, you agree?
Yeah, oh
Nothing
yeah.
difficult
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Concept's very easy, common sense. Implementing it is not so easy, yeah? Even though I can get instant buy-in to people going, yeah, you know, that sounds great, it's actually getting people not to interrupt or getting people not to change the priority, or getting people not to release work that's missing. So what does it look like? So typically how it would look like is we'd have an unkitted hopper of work, okay? So you'd have your task list that you've written down there. Then I'd full kit that task list. So full kit in that task list includes what does good look like, what does done look like. So for your list, you write down that's what good looks like. That's when I know I'm done. And then you write down all the things you need to be able to finish it. What's missing to be able to finish that. And once you've written down the done statement, and you've got everything that you need to finish it, then you get it into the ready to release.
Mm-hmm.
Fully kitted hopper. It's now got everything it needs to release. There may be more tasks in there. Now, I wouldn't say prioritize 20 tasks. That's a pointless exercise, because something else more urgent may jump in. So we're just wasting time doing that. So we typically prioritize one or two. Yeah. The next couple of tasks, prioritize them. No more than that. So now I've got a priority hopper. Yeah. So now I've got, these are unkitted. These are fully kitted, ready to release. These are the two next on my list. You can do this with Post-it notes. It doesn't have to be super sophisticated. Then I go from the priority hopper and it gets released. And the trigger to release the work is when the previous one's finished. Then I go to focus and finish behavior. So fairly simple of how to implement it in concept. But I'm asking for a behavioral change. To get the behavioral change, what I need to do is I need to reinforce the positive behaviors. So when somebody is properly releasing the work, then I need to congratulate them. When the work that they've released it are a full kit, I need to congratulate them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm claiming the benefits are massive here. So it's not a thing that's going to take me years to implement. It's a thing that I should, with proper preparation, be able to implement relatively quickly. You can even implement it yourself if you're sitting there listening as a manager. Look down your list and go, well, I could easily put 3 lists down here. It's going to make a massive difference to lead times. I'm only claiming you can half, but really what we'd do is we'd want to half it and then half it again. You'd easily get 20% of capacity back if you did this. You'd easily find you could do more things. Agree?
Yeah.
So is this the only concept to get the flow, to get the capacity up? No, this is just one of, it's not 100 concepts, there's 3 or 4 concepts, but the release concept is a very big one, and fundamentally I would claim it's one of the most important ones, that if you did this, you would get a step change difference. Before, you don't have to have the complete solution, just get the release right, or even if you only get it better than it is today, you would get a significant improvement. Is it easy to implement? Absolutely not. Most people would say, we've been telling you to do this for years, but you'll never do it because it's difficult to implement. And there are some obstacles to implementation. What I would ask you to do, and typically is what I'd ask anybody in an implementation to do, is tell me why it's difficult. So you said, oh, it's going to be difficult for me because, having that discipline. And so we want to write down, I want to capture those. Why is it difficult? So if you agree that it's a problem, you agree that actually seems to make sense as a direction of solution and there's some big benefits to be had, then we should put our efforts into what's the obstacles that are going to stop me implementing that. So if it's about discipline, then we need to think of how some ways that I think, I really don't want to do that task, it's really dead and boring. Is there some way we can force, even small chunks, do it for half an hour, put it down. Just do your, the small letters task. Here's half an hour. I'm going to focus on that. I'm not going to get disrupted by anything else. I'm going to turn my emails off. I'm going to turn my phone off for half an hour. I'm going to turn tricks that we can use to stop the distractions coming in. Yeah. And get that focus and finish mindset. But write the obstacles down, and then write up against each one of those, what can you do to overcome it? In almost 100% of cases, I would say that most people can come up with a good action that they can take to overcome most of those things. Then it's a case of just putting it in place.
Mm.
So that's the concept I wanted to go through. That's a bit about me, because I didn't. So I'm an engineer. I'm also the owner in a production facility myself, so I know how difficult it is to run that in these times. And I've specialised in Goldratt now for more than 20 years. And TOC-ICO is the world certification body, and I was the implementer of the year in 2018. So if you want to contact me, feel free. If you have got any questions, please feel free to contact me or contact Chris. There's my contact details on the end there. So that's what I wanted to cover today, Chris.
Very good. Yeah, thanks. I would encourage anyone watching to reach out to Andy if you've got any more questions. He's a gold mine of information. We've barely scratched the surface today. I think we could do one of these. We could prioritise doing one of these every day for months, and we could just about mine Andy for everything he knows. A quick question from me.
Yep.
You know, this is all, you know, very good, and I can see exactly how I can improve the way I work, and I'm sure everyone watching can see benefits as well. How does it come down? How do you recommend what you prioritize? Is it the most pressing thing, so the thing that has the shortest deadline, or is it the thing that's going to bring the most value to the company and the most high profile project, or is it the boss thinks is the most important, and he or she, you need to focus on that one first, even though there might be better focusing on something else?
Yep, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
It could be all of those. Personally, I would start with what brings me the fastest money. If I'm in a manufacturing environment, I'd say, well, what's going to make me the most money? So it may be an important project, but maybe it's not going to bring me money now. Depends how pressing the need is. We have, you know, if the need is that you've got for you, you have a deadline, then you obviously have to prioritize against the deadline.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. What I wouldn't fall into the trap of is trying to come up with a perfect prioritization system, which is why really I said only prioritize one or two. Just go with something that makes sense. Don't try and complicate it.
And I guess within teams as well, you know, quite often a project will involve. So if I take my personal job, there'll be me in editorial. We need to talk to the production team, the sales team, and it's kind of coordinating all these different. And I can do half a job, but then need someone else to help me complete the second half, or I need something from them before I can complete the second half. How do you kind of get interdepartmental or inter-team communication, and making sure that everyone's on the same hymn sheet, I suppose?
Yeah, so synchronization is very, very important. So what we would typically do is we'd have to agree what the so we do a flow of in your instance, map out the flow. There's some fairly big chunks of work. Maybe there's 4 chunks of work, and it goes to department to department to department, and it has to hit a deadline. So what we want is some visibility. And again, I'd just go for something simple. Just do 4 swim lanes. What's really important about synchronization between departments is the baton changeover. So again, the analogy I'd give is a relay runner. So what I don't want is a surprise. So you handing it to somebody and them going, that's missing about 3 bits that I need. So that's not a good handover. So it's often the handover that makes the difference. So when, the UK or GB won the Olympic gold medal, it wasn't because they had the 4 fastest sprinters, it's because they did the changeover better than anybody. So the key is in that changeover.
Yeah.
So make sure that the recipient understands, or that make sure the person who's giving it understands what the recipient needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess vice versa. You know, the recipient needs to know what they need, and be able to point out if something's missing, or if they need something clarifying early, before they get, neck deep in the project and suddenly realise there's something missing. So there needs to be clear. I guess there needs to be clear parameters around.
Yeah, and that's where full kit comes in, and that's where visibility comes in as well. 2 things: visibility of flow, so 4 post-it notes. I want to know when it's coming. I don't want a surprise of, here you go. Oh, I didn't know that was coming. It's like we can easily go, I'm working on that. It's going to come in 2 days, 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah,
Give somebody a heads up.
yeah.
Just
Well,
simple things.
I think the the benefits, that exercise that we did, it does show the importance of kind of thinking about flow and prioritizing jobs, and having, I guess, the kind of discipline and communication within the company to kind of stick to one task and everything else. And it's certainly something I'm going to be looking at, the way
Yep, I'll be checking up on you, Chris. Don't
yeah,
worry, in a
absolutely,
month's
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. I'll report back in a couple of weeks. Don't worry. I think, Andy, this has been a really interesting session. I'm sure we'll do more of these. I think I hope everybody who's watching agrees that it's been a really good and really worthwhile thing to do. If there is anything, if you've got any CI problems that you want us to cover, then please just reach out to either me or Andy, and we can. I'm sure Andy's got presentations and all sorts of fun little games and things that we can play, or exercises that we can do to look at that. So thank you all for tuning in. Hope you've all learned something. I know I have. I'm going to go and draw a load of swimming lanes and work out what I've got to do and how I'm going to do it before the weekend. Thank you for your time, Andy. It's been really interesting.
Thanks, Chris.
And
Thanks for
hopefully
inviting me.
see you again soon.
Yep. Okay. And if anyone wants a copy of the goal as well, then drop me or Chris a line, and I'll send them a complimentary copy.
I have read it. It's a very good read. So yeah, I'd recommend that as well. Thank you all for watching.
Thanks very much.